One. Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining us here on 9 News Watch. I'm meteorologist Chris Bianchi, and I'll be transparent about it from the start. I'm at my home studio due to a combination of the rising COVID cases and also personal exposure. I'm working from home here on this Monday, and will be for the next little while, but shouldn't impact anything. And in terms of the weather, I know we kind of want to get into that, especially after what was a horrifically active week last week. We are looking at some bouts of some more active weather, but generally speaking, we're not going to be dealing with nearly as much wind or as much snow as what we saw just last week. But start things out with what we're seeing here on this Monday. And I know for many of us, it's back to work Monday. Temperatures in the low 50s for us. So certainly a bit warmer than where we were back on Saturday. I remember that just on Saturday, we were only at 8 degrees for a high here in Denver, our coldest day since last February. But today, again, a high of 50 degrees. It's above average, our average high for today, 44 degrees. And we've had some of those kind of beautiful mountain wave clouds. You might have noticed last night we had a gorgeous, and sunrise this morning, gorgeous sunset last night and a gorgeous sunrise this morning. That's those mountain wave clouds. You get these little turbulent eddies as the air flows up and over the Rocky Mountains. As that air kind of descends, it forms into these clouds that you've seen, and that's often the type of cloud that leads to a gorgeous sunrise or a gorgeous sunset. But we do have a few of those clouds around. Otherwise, it's a calm day. The winds will be calm today, so no real weather highlights for today, other than the fact that you may have to watch for tomorrow morning. Because of the fact that we're going to get up to 50 degrees, we're going to melt a fair bit of that snowfall. So because of that, we'll probably see some refreezing tomorrow morning, and keep an eye on some black ice out there on the roads. So that's the situation for today. Tomorrow, we do turn a little bit more active in two ways. One, you'll probably notice a few more clouds into the afternoon, tomorrow afternoon than today. We're a tick colder than today as a result. So we'll be highs still in the upper 40s for your day tomorrow, but again, a little bit cooler than your day today. Not a big deal, but at least in terms of the temperatures. What will be a bigger deal is those winds do kick up again. And I know that compared to last week, or after last week and the horrific wildfires of last Thursday, that the wind may be a bit of an ominous sign. It is nothing to be like last week. Just to be clear off the bat, we're going to be seeing some gusts in the foothills, perhaps into the 60 to maybe 70 mile an hour range in a few localized spots. And that's not to diminish those winds. But last week, when we had the horrible windstorm that led to the devastating wildfires, we talked about in some cases wind gusts of 100 plus miles an hour. So again, I want to reemphasize that yes, it will be windy tomorrow. At this point, it doesn't look anywhere near the level of what we saw last week. That's point number one. Point number two is, yes, we'll be looking at winds tomorrow. Obviously, we had a fair bit of snow over the weekend. It's still on the ground virtually everywhere here across the Front Range and throughout eastern Colorado. And as a result of that snow, the ground is going to be a lot more saturated. It's a lot more moist. So we're not looking at fire danger for your day tomorrow. Very, very limited threat, if any. Again, we just want to again, after last week, kind of calm some of those fears. Yes, it will be windy tomorrow, but it's not going to be anything like last weekend. It will not lead to any sort of substantial fire danger like what we had last Thursday. So again, we kind of want to get that out of the way. And by the way, kind of want to reemphasize the fact that for all of you dealing with those fire impacts, our hearts go out to you. I mean, there's no other way to put it. We're with you. We're thinking of you. We're praying for you. We're certainly thinking about everyone impacted by those fires last week. And again, just want to reemphasize, after last week, we're not going to be looking at anything like that tomorrow or anything like that this week, any sort of fire threat to that degree. I'll get more into that here in just a second. What we do have as a bit more of a threat as we get into your Wednesday will be the possibility for some snow, and this will be after dark on your Wednesday. So taking a kind of look ahead as we get into that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday time period, the big highlight probably for the upcoming week. I'll have more details on this tomorrow as this forecast looks a little bit clearer. We're going to get some snow late on Wednesday. The exact amounts are still a little bit up in the air because we're going to probably see one or two localized bands that put down some heavier snow in a few spots. But the thing to take away from Wednesday is that between about kind of 5 and 7 o'clock, so during the evening rush hour on Wednesday, we could be looking at some pretty decent snow for a short period of time. So just keep in mind that Wednesday evening, that commute could be tricky. So just keep that in mind. So there's a look at Wednesday afternoon, again, 5, 6 o'clock, right during that evening rush. Things do turn a bit more active. So just, again, keep that in mind. If you can push up any sort of plans, or you can, I don't know, let's say you're coming to or from work or coming to or from a doctor's appointment or something like that. And if you have the ability to make that a little bit earlier, by 2, 3 o'clock, the road should be fine. We probably won't have any snow at that hour either. So again, 2, 3 o'clock, even 4 o'clock, probably okay. It's once that sun goes down, you're going to get that snow coming down pretty hard for a short period of time. That'll slicken up the roads. That'll make it a bit messy out there for, again, a fairly short period of time, but enough to lead to some of those impacts on I-25, I-70, on 36, as we get into that Wednesday evening time frame. So just something to keep in mind. Now, I do have some good news to pass along, and taking a look at our statewide snowpack levels. This is just awesome to see in the mountains. The last few weeks, we've been just getting pounded with snowfall. We were desperate for snow. Just 3 weeks ago, you might remember, we were only at about 50 to 60% of our typical season-to-date snowpack just 1 month ago. Less than a month ago, we were at barely half of where we should be. Now we're over our season-to-date snowpack. In fact, 7 of our 8 basins here across the state of Colorado, 7 of our 8 river basins were above average in terms of our season-to-date norm. So this is just phenomenal news here, folks. Yes, here along the Front Range, there's no doubt that we are still plenty snow-starved at Denver National Airport. We've only picked up 6 inches of snow so far this season. That's compared to where we should be. Comparing that to where we should be at about 25 inches. We've only seen 6, so we're obviously struggling for snow here along the Front Range, though we did get a pretty decent little storm this weekend. I'm looking outside right now, outside my window, and yeah, we got a pretty decent amount back over the weekend. The mountains, though, folks, totally different story, and a totally much better story for us in the mountains. We've seen way more of our snowfall than our season-to-date average so far this season. This is just phenomenal news in terms of what we've seen for us here in the mountains, and this is where that snow counts for a couple of reasons. One, this is where, if we're talking and looking ahead to next spring, summer, and fall, and the potential for wildfire danger in the mountains, obviously that snowpack in the mountains is where that counts. That's where we get a lot of our water here along the Front Range. I think it's 75, 80% of our water comes from those reservoirs up in the mountains. So as a result of that, we desperately need that snowpack in the mountains. And we are, at least so far this season, now doing very well on that front. So it's been a tough week. I think we probably could use a little bit of good news. There's one bit of good news. And then also another bit of good news. Looking ahead to next weekend, we do have some pretty nice weather in store for next weekend as well. I know it's Monday, January the 3rd. Again, maybe in light of last week, for a lot of us, we're getting back to work after the lengthy holiday season. So maybe already thinking about next weekend. And it does look pretty nice for next weekend. And we'll, by the way, get some more mountain snowfall for next weekend as well. Saturday and Sunday, we should see some of that snow kicking back into the mountains, probably kind of later Saturday into early Sunday. So with the mountains, not going to get a ton of snow from that system that impacts us here in Denver on Wednesday, but it's next weekend where I think the mountains do get a bit more in the way of some snowfall. Maybe a chance for us as we get into your Sunday for seeing some of that as well here in along the Front Range. I don't think next weekend is the setup that leads to much, if any, snowfall for us here into eastern Colorado. Wednesday will be the day for us here in eastern Colorado, but we'll keep an eye on the possibility for some Front Range snowfall for next weekend. In the meantime, again, the big highlight for next weekend, if you're skiing up in the mountains next weekend, we're going to get more snow. And here along the Front Range, it looks generally on the calmer side. And again, compared to last week, the forecast overall does trend pretty calm for us here along the Front Range and throughout the urban corridor, which, again, in light of last week, in light of all the devastations ongoing, I would like to see a couple days where we're warmer than average for those that may be without power, that may be just overall for the ongoing cleanup efforts, obviously seeing some relatively tranquil weather will be good news. And of course, B, we are looking at a little bit in the way of some snow here along the Front Range, and that'll keep that moisture, should keep the ground fairly saturated, and that is also good news. We want to see that ground remain saturated. We're still in a pretty dire drought here along the Front Range, so that fire threat, despite the fact that we've got that snow now, and we're going to get a bit more this week, it's unfortunately not over. Colder air can hold less moisture than warmer air, so when we get 6 inches of snow, that's only coming from about a quarter inch of rainfall equivalent. So point being is it may be a bit misleading, the amount of moisture that we've got on the ground right now. Like there's not that much water in that snow that you're looking at outside right now. And as a result of that, unfortunately, that fire danger may continue through the rest of the winter season. But the good news is in the near term, for the next week or so, we're not going to probably be looking at any sort of elevated fire concerns for us here along the Front Range, which of course is something that we're really keeping a close eye on in light of what happened just a few days ago. So overall, good news to pass along. I would say the big highlight for the upcoming week will be Wednesday evening with a quick 1 to 3, 2 to 4 inch type of snowfall for us here in the Denver area. But again, keep in mind the timing of it. Often, maybe what's overlooked with some of these snow events is when it happens. And that snow looks like it's going to come down pretty fast and furiously for about an hour or two right during that Wednesday evening rush. So if you've got those Wednesday evening plans and you can bump them up a bit or move them back to Thursday, I think that's a pretty good idea. By the time you wake up on Thursday morning, that snow should be long over and done with, though it will be pretty darn cold on Thursday, the high just 25. That'll do it for this check-in of that week-long forecast. Tomorrow I'm going to have more details on what that snow forecast might look like, a bit more details on that. But in the meantime, again, I'll give you a few of those top-line headlines for the week ahead. I'm Meteorologist Chris Bianchi, and thanks again for joining us here on 90s Watch.